Okay, this is a comment on the potential UK-US free trade agreement. And I say potential because the British government isn't free to negotiate until it leaves the EU. And there seems to be some question on that. There shouldn't be, but there is. Now this piece comes from both Breitbart and Neon Nettle. Now it's good news for the USA and great news for the UK, according to Neon Nettle, that is. The United States and the United Kingdom have signed a mutual recognition agreement which will secure British-American trade, carries on following Brexit, according to reports. The new agreement will bypass the pro-EU loyalists who claim that trade would be damaged. The United States is the UK's largest single trade partner and the number one source of inward investment, mostly on World Trade Organization terms. So in a supposed no-deal situation with the EU, the UK would be protected. While the EU try to put the UK in a box, the US and others are going ahead with future free trade agreements. There is, after all, life outside the EU. I hope that this move and others will put that behemoth known as the EU in its place. An undemocratic Goliath may, pardon the pun, have just been slayed by its own David. If this works, and I hope it does, it could be a template for others to follow suit. Here's just part of that piece from Neon Nettle. US President Donald Trump has hailed the signing of a Mutual Recognition Agreement, MRA, on trade with the United Kingdom, saying the move would see trade between the two nations substantially increased after Brexit. The words of praise came in a key speech on the White House lawn in which the President also declared a state of emergency on the southern border. After discussing trade with and the lack of respect shown by China, Trump moved on to an altogether more positive relationship his nation has with the United Kingdom. Referencing the news of the MRA, which broke earlier in the day, President Trump said the UK and the US, as you have probably seen, were going ahead to preserve our trade agreement. You all know the situation with respect to Brexit, the complexity and the problems, but we have a very good trading relationship with the UK and have just strengthened it further. President Trump's comments follow others by US Ambassador Woody Johnson and by the British Secretary of State for International Trade, Dr. Liam Fox. Hailing the development, Dr. Fox said Friday, the UK and the US are the strongest trading partners in this agreement, will allow British and American businesses to keep trading as freely as they do today, without additional bureaucracy. Our top priority is ensuring continuity for businesses as we leave the European Union, and we are signing other agreements in the days and weeks ahead. We look forward to sitting down at the negotiating table with the Americans after we leave the European Union to strike an ambitious new free trade agreement. Well, there you have it. And the piece continues. And as someone once said, keep watching this space. There could be a lot to see. Now, since doing this research on this piece, yet again there have been delays on the Brexit vote. It's almost like, the Prime Minister of Great Britain doesn't want to admit there's nothing left in the well. The EU have hung Britain out to dry. They basically have two choices, either to admit defeat and leave the EU with no deal, which according to the so-called experts would be catastrophic for the British economy, or pass the deal that's on the table now, which would be for all intents and purposes sounding the demise of Britain and its democracy. Quite a choice. However, these experts come from a crop of past geniuses who said joining the EEC, the then European Economic Community, would do great things for the British economy, while many believe it achieved exactly the opposite. In the 80s they tried to destroy the British pound, and Margaret Thatcher stood strong against that, but prior to that they destroyed the method of measurement in Britain. Britain was forced to embrace the metric system and replace its currency, which it has used for hundreds of years, and replace it with the decimal system, which at a stroke caused massive inflation in the UK in the 70s. Massive inflation. And Britain never really recovered from that moment. But they never talk about that. And the damage that the EEC at the time did to British trading partners throughout the world. Many in Britain can remember a time when they were forced not to trade with New Zealand, Australia, and other Commonwealth countries because it didn't suit the then EEC. All that gets brushed under the table, and Britain was made weaker and weaker and weaker, and having to spend more money, having to put more money into the EEC caused Britain to reduce its national defence. However, many countries that did join at the time benefited, such as Southern Ireland, the Republic of Ireland. They got massive investments without spending massive amounts of money. Britain was the opposite. All the EEC saw was an opportunity to sell into a democratic and prosperous country. So I feel, like many others, that there's never a good time to end a relationship, but it's better to break up and remain friends than the alternative, that being of reprisals and recriminations. No one wants that, do they? They want to remain on pleasant terms. The EU wants to send a message to the rest of its European partners. Leave us at your peril. If Britain bows to the pressure of these agreements now, the future is not good, is not bright at all. The future is not democratic. The EU is not a democratic organisation. It purports to be, but it is far from that. Britain voted to leave, and leave they should. And that's my short comment.